Every morning on my way to school, I see many children my age and those younger than me chasing vehicles begging for money. As president, what would you do to reduce or completely eliminate out-of-school children in Nigeria so they can become valuable contributors to our society?
The question of the out-of-school children. Millions of our children are currently roaming the street instead of being in the classroom. Unfortunately, majority of these children are in the north. This is unacceptable. I will work hard to turn around these statistics. My administration will invest heavily in infrastructure to allow for proper integration, partnership with developmental partners to provide alternative access to education and vocational to these particular demographics. We encourage the out-of-school children. We will give them incentive, including feeding. There is nothing wrong if we employ the elementary teachers and allocate 4 hours to them or 1 hour. Say, okay, bring those children to the class. We will allow you from 1 hour to 4 hours to give them Quranic education if that is what you want. But let them learn Western education as well. Offer job to the elementary teachers and extend the school feeding program in collaboration with the state to those students. If only 1 hour or 2 hours of learning a day, you will improve their life. If you allow the advisory teacher an engagement like any other teacher engaged for vernacular, what we are learning from the Holy Book is Arabic language. Otherwise, there are many things we can do the same way, but differently. We will, with strong determination. You need to invest in the classroom. You need to have a clinic there. I've done it when I was short of teachers in Lagos. No one wants to go to the rural area. Then I built clinics for them. And I give them extra allowance as an incentive to do it. We can do it.
Yes, it is true. According to UNESCO, we have about 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, and most of them in the north. I believe you don't need magic to resolve this problem. What you need is commitment and investment in education. I don't agree that either our local governments or our states don't have the capacity. I will tell you why. Again, when we were in office, we enacted a compulsory education law, making it compulsory for every child to go to school in Nigeria. And it is the responsibility of the states and local government to ensure that. What did we do? We also imposed education tax on Nigerians. Those of you sitting here are paying education tax, whether you know or you don't know. And this education tax is being distributed to the states and local governments every month. How do we get them to make sure they utilize those funds to make sure there are enough schools? After all, as most of you know who have read my history, my father went to prison because he refused to send me to school. Now, the village head cannot force you to go to school. The district head cannot force you to go to school. Not even the local government. They say there is fundamental human rights, but you can legislate it. Since we legislated compulsory education tax, why will we not legislate compulsory that you must send your children to school? So I don't agree that we don't have the capacity, either in terms of manpower or in terms of funding to do it. We have made the funding available. When I was vice president, I summoned all the northern governors here in this Arewa house. I set up a committee under Professor Adamu Bake. How can the northern states catch up with their counterparts in the south? And he spent almost 1 year touring the northern states and all that and so on and so forth. He came with a blueprint. I invited all the northern governors here in this Arewa house, and I handed over the blueprint to each governor. Go and implement it. If they had implemented those blueprints, we will not be where we are today. There will not be all this terrorism and so on and so forth. No. So we have what it takes. What perhaps we have lacked was the capacity and also the leadership. Me, I will not be president and sit down and see you do this work. I will not sit down and look at you. I will make you do your work.
An educational reform must be in such a way that they are able to cope, with current educational trends. That is technology, innovation, and so on and so forth. So it requires really additional funding and infrastructure to be able to bring up the numbers as far as the northern states are concerned, and therefore provide a productive population. Because all this talk about poverty, unemployment, and so on and so forth, once you increase investment in education and you provide the right type of education, you are going to solve the poverty issue. The government must be prepared to invest more in running of our universities. And then we should also avoid a bottleneck in getting these funds to the right places, to the universities. At the current system or current structure, there is a bottleneck. When government releases funding for the universities, it goes to another agency of the government. And that agency of the government now stifles the universities from getting this funding. And unless we remove that bottleneck, even as insufficient funding as we provide will not get to them in time, or what may get to them may not be the right amount of money. I think these are structural issues that I believe I can deal with forthwith, if I have the opportunity.
The difference between rich and poor nation is health and education. So how do you tackle this? You tackle it by investing in this critical area. And that's what I will do if I have the opportunity of serving. Our investment in education is low compared to even comparable countries. If you look at it, let me just use 2016 to date, 6 years, to 2021. Our investment, our total investment in budget in education at the federal level is about 3.6 trillion, just 3,550 billion. All throughout these 6 years, our budget is not up to 10% in education. There's no way that can happen with the pool of people we have out of school. For me, Nigeria can design their budget differently. If we work hard in this country, I believe Nigeria can, if they pluck all revenues, be able to get a revenue of about 15 trillion annually. And if they are borrowing, not throwing away to subsidy and other areas and curtailing cost of governance, they borrow about maybe another 10 trillion. You need about 25 trillion budget to start with. And 10% of that should go to education. And 10% to the other areas which we're going to come into. We're going to invest in education. We're going to do whatever is possible to ensure that we pull those millions of children, ensure they get basic education. What you need to do, apart from having increased investment, like I said, in education, is to also have increased supervision and ensuring that the resources are well utilized, working in partnership with the states and local governments. Because when you talk about out-of-school children in the north, these are children who have learned Quran. If they can learn Quran, that means they're intelligent. I will meet them at where they are learning Quran and teach them skill. Education is not an expense. That's the first thing that I have to come to you. Education is an investment. Because the more your country is educated, the more that your development. So when you see that an investment, that's why I said to fund social critical development is an investment. So you're going to get more out of it. Now, how do you fund education? And how do you fund health? Because these are critical areas. First is a combination of a lot of things. Our universities today is poorly funded, and just all the tertiary institutions is poorly funded. One is that you need to change the method of funding them. The country has to contribute. The companies, you said, will continue with the debt fund contribution, and then we'll do a combination of loan system to enable the students pay what is required. We're not going to burden their parents. Every other country that I know, even developing countries, have changed. We're going to learn, so it's going to be a combination of three ways in order to be able to fund tertiary institutions properly. But overall, the funding of tertiary institutions in Nigeria needs to be restructured. It needs to bring a lot of mix where government will contribute. We have some deductions from private sector. Who needs these products? Who contribute? And bring issue of loans and everything. It's not something that I think federal government can continue funding the way they are funding it. What they need now is to go back to the agreement, clear the backlogs, and then design a sustainable funding mechanism.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I will give you a copy of the blueprint to send to her. Because, you see, we have clearly addressed the issue of out-of-school children. In fact, there are about 20 million. And we made it clear that we are going to build 500,000 classrooms across the country, meaning that every child in this country should go to school. Education has to be funded. Education is key. And that was why, for example, in Kano, I'm happy they are listening to us. No child of school age was denied going to school. And that was why we built thousands of classrooms. That's why we provided thousands of furniture. We provided offices, workshops. We built hundreds of secondary schools. We built 44 technical schools. We built schools for Islamic studies. And that was why we even had law to prohibit anybody sending his child elsewhere. If you want Islamic education, Western education, this is the school. In the course of my experience, especially in Kano, we had an opportunity to pull out so many people from poverty by way of education mainly, right from primary, secondary to tertiary level. Education has always been key to us. It's number one, number two, number three on our agenda. Encourage private people to set up facilities, primary, secondary, and tertiary. Each and every child in this country will be given the opportunity to go to school at all levels. Our program, the blueprint that we have, has properly addressed all the concerns of ASU. We have made it very clear in our blueprint that we will not be in a hurry to create additional institutions or tertiary institutions. What we will start with day one is to ensure the improvement, the expansion of all the tertiary institutions that we have in this country, including the equipment necessary, including the quality teachers that we have across the country, and even our brothers and sisters that are in diaspora. So we have a comprehensive arrangement in our manifesto to make sure that ASU in particular, their concerns are properly addressed.